Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast, episode number 404, Palindrome, episode number 404, for September 21st, 2025. That's right. We're not just here to talk video games, but we're here to educate you. But with me tonight, I also have Mr. DBQ Hams. DB, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, doing okay. Been under the weather this weekend, but glad to be here. So I was just checking our links in our news stories, and one of the news stories gives me a 404 error. So I had to fix that in the agenda. But also very fitting for being episode 404.
That's right. It was all written in the stars. And also, Mr. Game Logic, our tech guru. How's it going, Game?
I'm good. I am tech refreshed and ready to go.
Nice. All right. So we got that Madden background there. We'll be talking some EA games actually here in a second in our main GX stories. Then head into our segment 2 with our news headlines for the week or the past week, and rounding out with our round robin with everything else we've been playing recently. So let's start off, Mr. Game Logic, with you. Our first EA game of tonight. I think a little EA heavy this week, but you have NHL 26 on the PS5 Pro. How is that going for you?
It's going good. I don't have too much to brief out on it tonight because I've only played like my first couple of games. What I will say is number one, huge facelift this year for someone who hasn't played the game for maybe the last few years. I think the last new one that I picked up was NHL 21. The graphical improvements are amazing. And I mean, to me, it really shows, as I'm playing NHL 26, Madden 26, which we'll talk about a little bit tonight, FC 26 is about to roll out later this week, and college football 26, like it's really showing how the EA studios are really getting their teeth into and their arms around Frostbite after, the years where Frostbite really got, in my opinion, a bad rap because it wasn't tooled right to make it applicable to other types of genres, particularly sports. It was really tooled to make it suitable for first-person shooters, and so all of the assets were around there. All of the engine performance tuning was around there. All the models were for that type of thing, the animations, etc. And so after now having had a few years underneath their belts and really retooling Frostbite for the specific sports genres, it's really kind of showing how, you can agree or disagree whether or not that was a good decision. Financially, it's probably a very good decision. Whether or not it's being supported as well as it should have been, I don't have a great sense of that. I still am always of the mind, as I think I've mentioned on this podcast several times, and other places, that my personal feeling is if you're going to foist a corporate engine upon every single studio, then you really need to break it away from the originating studio that it came out of and make it its own separate thing. Like that, I firmly believe that those people should not sit at the desk at DICE and be under the purview of managers who are hyper-focused on getting Battlefield 6 out rather than supporting the engine that every other studio has to use. Because, for those of us who have worked in an IT space, how, we all know, you get prioritized around the things that are most beneficial to those managers, not necessarily what's most beneficial to everyone else. But man, I mean, it's just killer. The facelift, like and that goes into the animations as well. In a lot of kind of the stories that I'll be talking about tonight, as I've told in the past when I've really gotten deep into like sports games, and in particular, right after kind of spending a lot of time with the story-driven stuff this year and the FOMO-driven stuff, this year and since last year, and not wanting to go into gas. I am definitely kind of on an arc where I don't want to go back to gas, but I do want more of a grind. Like I'm less interested. I've been revisiting that. I spent a lot of money on games that I may not finish because that line of threshold of like how much time I'm going to spend in a game has just gotten shorter and shorter the older I get. Like the old line of demarcation used to be 40 hours. Now it's creeping backwards more. And I'm hitting the point where I realize, like, look, if a game's longer than 20 to 25 hours, story-driven narrative, like I'm probably unlikely to stick with it all the way through. Expedition 33 was probably the exception to that rule. So I'm definitely in an arc where I kind of want the grind, and I kind of want, like, you know, if I'm going to dump hours and time into a game, I want to see like career progression, and I want to have like lengthy stories to tell. I want time to really hyper focus on those games and really develop those expertise and learn those systems, and have that not be like a moment in time, right, of gameplay, and then move on to like whatever the next FOMO thing is, right, that everybody's salivating over. So but like I said, like, you know, I'm getting a great game out of NHL 26 right now. It does not appear that may not have to like tweak and dork around with sliders as much, which is really kind of the same story for Madden 26. Madden 26 kind of out of the box is doing well, whereas something like college football and MLB, like not so much out of the box at the baseline settings, like a ton of tuning required. NHL 26 is settling in pretty well right now. I really wish I had taken some game captures this week, because some of the goals that I scored were just immaculate. Like, you know, a four pass setup, and then the last guy like pitches the puck up in the air like about waist high at a guy closing on the goalie, and that guy just like sticks his stick out, you know, at waist height, and just like pushes the puck into the goal. So it was pretty amazing, and I wish I'd caught that on video. But yeah, I'm having a good time right now. I'm playing the franchise mode, obviously, and we'll talk about some other games that, you know, put some things in front of your face. But, you know, generally I try and like stay away from all that ultimate team foolishness. But playing in franchise mode, I'm playing the Vancouver Canucks, because I used to live out that way and used to, you know, go up to Vancouver frequently. So I've never played a Canadian team in NHL before. So yeah, like having a good time with it.
Nice. So, as we like to do here, there's, you know, a question we like to ask, but this one is actually, I think, one I usually like to ask is PS5 Pro. You chose. What's the reason for that, or just that was kind of the console that came up for you this rolled around?
So it's an interesting moment in time, because, like I said, I'm now kind of and we've had this conversation on this show in years past, where we kind of talk about obligatory due diligence gaming, like stuff that you feel obligated to play because it's in the zeitgeist, or you kind of need to get around, or you kind of need to be savvy in the state of the art, right, in terms of not state of the art of technology, but state of the artistic elements of what's going on in games. Going kind of where I'm going now, where I'm kind of like going for games that are a grind, I need to have some way of making sure I kind of get around, right, to all the hardware, because I do, you know, I do want to be diversified. I do want games on every system. I do, you know, I don't want to play games by default, like on a thing. And so right now I'm kind of experimenting with this notion of, because so many of the games are going to be multi-platform, of playing the games where they technically are performing best. Sometimes that's driven by reviews. Sometimes you get some inflections where, like, sometimes games aren't reviewed on a system, particularly like these annual releases, like, you know, just based on market distribution, right? They just won't review a game on a system. But I picked up an NHL 26 because, you know, most of the reviews that I've seen, and that game is only on PlayStation and Xbox. So it's not on Switch. It's not on PC. It appears to be performing better right now on PS5/PS5 Pro. So that's why I picked it up there. But I, you know, have, as we will see tonight, I've picked up several other games on other systems as well. So, you know, it's not like defaulting to PlayStation 5.
Yeah. No, it's just, you know, we're all, you know, multi-console, in your case, PCs. But, you know, I always just kind of like to ask that question to see, you know, what the reason is behind it. And then one last question for me for this game. You're saying you're playing franchise mode, and I haven't played. When I play the sports games, I kind of just usually kind of go into, you know, quick plays, or I guess in some of the MLB, I'll do like the, you know, the show where it's kind of like the storyline. Franchise mode, is that just you're controlling the team and that's it, or is this like a story mode type of thing? And does it have a story mode if it's not?
I'm pretty sure all of these now have like a you are the player kind of mode.
Yeah, isn't that the World of Chell? Or I don't know if it's still called that, but there has been a like create a player and play in the past couple iterations of it.
There's World of Chell, but I thought the player mode was another mode as well. So,
Okay.
But yes, I think it does have that mode in there. I don't know if I can't remember if it's a side note, but like in F125, I'm playing the create a driver mode, which is the first time I've ever played that mode in F1. I typically in F1 play the like you create a team and you're like the driver and owner, but that's one where I'm playing like that kind of create a player mode. But that mode in that game doesn't have all of the like goofy like RPG kind of stuff in the player mode. But in this one, the franchise mode, it's the standard. Like you control the team. You're notionally the weird thing in NHL 26. You're notionally the GM. You're not the coach. Now again, I'm not a hockey expert, so I don't know exactly how those roles like may not be the same as they are in other sports. But I noticed I was expecting to be like the coach, and I noticed that like there was a dialogue piece in there. There was a message that came through where like I thought it was one of the line coaches who said like blah 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 blah, and I said I'm more of a hands-off GM, like was the choice that I made, and I was like, oh, that's weird. So at any rate, I am in control of the team. I am also kind of changing my approach path on sports games when I start. And I've mentioned this before that I used to go in for like, well, hey, let me manage the stadium, let me like set the price of the tickets and like all that like GM kind of stuff that you could do in the game. With these games now, I let the CPU handle all that and all the trades and the draft and the scouting and all that stuff, because particularly in NHL and especially in soccer, like the scouting can just be like a game in and of itself, and it gets way overly detailed. So now I'm just shoving that stuff off so I can hyper focus on like players and training and formations and tactics and get all that underneath my belt like the first season, and then like later on like mess with all that other stuff. So it is franchise mode. You do have all the stuff at the team level, but I've also put a lot of that off like on the CPU and just let them manage that.
And Tao, to answer your question, the kind of create a player storyline mode is Be a Pro, is what it's called, is the Be a Pro mode, which has cutscenes and storyline and choices and things like that.
Nice. All right. DB, have any other questions or comments on NHL? Nope. All right, DB, if you want to jump on the mic for your Nintendo Switch game that you've been playing.
Yeah, my new game is a re-release or a remaster of a 2007 game. So Puzzle Quest, the Immortal edition. So this was announced a few weeks ago that they were coming out with a new edition in 4K for current systems. Puzzle Quest did what was it called? The Legend Returns edition on Switch back in 2019. And it added in the DLC from the original game. Original game came out on DS and PSP, and then eventually came out on PC and Xbox and a little bit of everything. iOS, it was all over the place. It's still Puzzle Quest. It's still the original Puzzle Quest. I mean, it looks good. It looks better. I do own the 2019 edition on Switch, and so I got an additional discount. I think like right now there's a launch discount of either 10 or 20%, and I got another 10% off for owning the previous edition. So it was like $10 to pick up. But it's on Switch and on Steam Deck. It has touchscreen controls. So I've been mainly playing. I mean, I picked it up on Switch, been playing it with just the tablet, put the controllers down and just kind of use the tablet. It's a great kind of second screen as something's on in the background, watching sports over the weekend. It's Puzzle Quest. It is that idea of you're matching up different gems that give you spells or abilities to do attacks or heals or other types of special moves. And then if you're matching up skulls, that's a direct attack on an enemy. Puzzle Quest for me has always been just as much as a offensive game as it is a defensive game, that you're kind of looking like, yeah, this is a this is a match. I mean, Puzzle Quest is a match 3 game, right? This is a match I can make, but then it's going to drop and create a spot for the opponent, the computer AI to make a attack on me, and so I might not choose that move this round. And it's and in true Puzzle Quest fashion, the computer still gets some lucky breaks, and suddenly it makes one move and it chains together 4 others that keep dropping and attack you. And but that's been the reality of Puzzle Quest from the very beginning. This is not, they haven't retooled the AI in it at all. So it's a text, still cutscene, dialogue and story, but it's still fun, still enjoyable. It is, I've enjoyed the Puzzle Quest series. The original Puzzle Quest played on DS, picked it up on PSP, eventually had it on a couple other things as well. Puzzle Quest 3, I was in like an early access to it and played through the story there. That's the free-to-play one on mobile. And it kind of breaks down in many free-to-play ways in terms of, getting additional boxes and loot that need to be broken down to feed into to gain up higher gear. So this goes back to a much more simpler format and a cleaner interface, and it's a one-time purchase, which is nice. So it works as Puzzle Quest always has. Like, it's not Puzzle Quest Marvel or Magic or all the other free-to-play ones that give you you're locked in with a lot of microtransactions. That this is simply just match some gems, play some boards, and if you lose, you don't really lose much. You still get a little bit of experience, and you can go back and take on the same enemy again. And as you level up, you can put skill points into basically different gem abilities, that matching certain gems increases the number of mana that you get from those gems, or the number of damage that you make. So it is very, going back to Game Logic, your statement of grind heavy, it is very grind heavy. But it works as an easy pick up and play, something that is not, I'm not investing hours at a time in, but it's also something where it's easy to play a board or two while I'm waiting for something else.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually played the original Puzzle Quest. Like, this kind of like started that whole explosion. All the clones, like you mentioned, the Marvel one. I've played that one. I think on Android, I've played that one. I've played what's the one I played on console? I think it was Gems of War. Was another one that's kind of like that.
Yeah, and I think Gems of War, some of the original developers from Puzzle Quest did Gems of War, so it plays very similarly, except with without the microtransactions.
Yeah. So I just never went back and tried that one out. But yeah, it's cool that they've kind of upgraded it even more now, I guess, or again, I should say. Game Logic, any questions?
So DBQ, you said you are playing the game mostly in tablet mode. Have you used the controllers at all, the Joy-Cons?
A little bit. I mean, the way the controllers work is that you have a reticle on the board that you move around with the sticks in order to choose which gems you're going to swap. So it works just fine that way. It's in terms of playing it with just a tablet, it's much more of a form factor of, it's a lot lighter and it's easy to just kind of move through and play with the touchscreen.
Any idea if it will support on Switch 2 Joy-Con and mouse mode?
I haven't seen if that's a good question. I'll look it up because I'm not sure.
Okay,
I haven't tried it.
And when you have used it, have the Joy-Cons felt like natural and intuitive, or is it like a big context shift from the way you would normally interact with a match 3 game?
No, I mean, it is, to me, it slows it down a little bit because you're not just simply swiping here and there, that you've got to kind of move the cursor around. But it includes rumble as well. Like if you're taking an attack or you're giving an attack, there's rumble in it. No, I think it plays just fine with controllers.
Nice. All right. Let me jump into. Sorry, I was trying to flip between screens there. Let me jump into my game now. Another EA game, our second EA game of the night, which is Skate or Skate Period or Skate Dot. I don't even know how to say this game, but I'm just going to call it Skate for this session here. I played it on PC and Xbox Series X. If you don't know, this is just more of a sim skating game than like Tony Hawk, where you're kind of like just blazing through different cities or a skate park or whatnot. This is more sim-like. You have control of your board, or the actions from your board more on for me, the right stick, because I'm a righty. So you do like the ollies and you do your tricks and stuff all from the right stick. Left stick's like normal, just moving around, the directions you need to go to. But this one is actually online, and it's an open world skate game. And always online. So as far as I know, you can't do any offline on this one. You always kind of connect to the internet and you can see people, and you don't really there's no collision to other people, at least not in just like the main mode. I think there's like a battle mode or maybe some kind of other kind of mode you can do with people. I haven't tried that yet, but you're going around this fictional city in this game. And I don't know if everything's open to you at the beginning. I never really tried because I basically was just running through like all the missions and challenges, kind of just going through like the storyline ish, if you want to call it that, of the game. So just doing the challenges kind of as they come up through like the main quest, and then you can kind of go off and do like other things if you see stuff on the map. Now the map itself, it doesn't it's not showing like a whole bunch of, it's not like and no offense, Ubisoft game where there's like a bunch of stuff that you see like just scattered all around. But there's, a few things here and there. Like obviously, like I said, the main quest you can see is a few like skate park areas. I think there's areas where it's like it's almost like an event area where you can see on the map, and you go over there and you can start tricks and stuff like that. That's another thing I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. Like I got to see it on the map and go to it, but I don't know if and you see like a little timer that pops up when you go in that area, and it's counting down. So I don't know if you're just supposed to do tricks or if you're supposed to go somewhere specifically to like start some kind of mission, stuff like that. So I'm trying to figure that out right now. But basic gameplay, like I said, is just it's Skate. If you've ever played Skate 1 through 3, same kind of style. Graphically, it's a little cartoony. It's kind of like a stylized, cartoony look. It's not like it's not like a Fortnite or anything, but it's not totally like a real life person, and that's getting kind of some flack on online, obviously on boards and stuff like that. But it's fine with me. Like as long as the gameplay's there, I'm fine with it. I don't really care about the graphic style. And it's not like it's not like cell shaded or anything like that. It's just kind of more like I said, like a stylistic look. A lot of customization, or a good amount of customization, I should say, not a lot. And I don't think I mentioned this, but this is early access right now. So it's not officially released yet. And I don't know if they've given an actual date for 1.0 or the official, excuse me, the official full release. But I'm sure that'll probably come within sometime next year, maybe, or a few years, if it even ever comes out of early release. Who knows nowadays? But no, I'm having a really good time with this. The one thing I haven't really seen, like graphically, like I said, it's kind of that stylized, cartoony look. I haven't really seen any issues graphically within the world or anything. It looks pretty nice. Looks like real pretty graphically. And unfortunately, you can't play this on the Steam Deck because of the anti-cheat that they use. And I think it's something that EA is always using on there. It kind of dorks with. I don't think it works with Linux, so it's not going to work on the Steam Deck, unfortunately. So I think that was a big thing with Apex 2. Even though that did work at first, but then whenever they switched their anti-cheat, it kind of screws, you can't use it on Linux, so you can't play it on there. So like I said, I played it on PC originally for a couple days, and then I played on Xbox Series X, and I mean, graphically, I didn't really see any big difference that I could tell. It ran smoothly on both systems, so there's no problems there. The one, I guess, kind of funny thing that they do in this game is there's two. Let me rewind a little bit there. So there's two things that kind of jumps out at me on this one. So you can kind of do parkour around the city, to jump up to places, maybe just do like weird tricks and stuff like that. Climb buildings, or if there's you can tell there might be like a little like like a trellis or something. It's like, oh, okay, I can climb that, and you can just go up there and jump off a building or jump off a side or something like that, or just do a line, as the kids say. And do stuff like that, which I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. I don't remember you being able to do like climbing up buildings or anything like that in the original games. I think you can like excuse me, like climb up a wall or something if it wasn't too high, or or stuff like that. But it wasn't like this where you literally, I'm like Altair or something from Assassin's Creed, and I'm climbing up a building, all the way to the top of like a skyscraper or something. So it's kind of neat. And then the other thing they have is like, you can do these, I guess what they call stunts, is where you can like jump off buildings and you're basically like gliding down like to a spot, or they'll give you like a excuse me, they give you like a quest, and it's like, hey, you gotta like land. There might be like kind of like these big like metal tubes or like concrete tubes. You gotta like go into the tube or land into the tube or land into a garbage can or something like that. So that's a little weird, but I mean, I guess it's they're trying to have a little bit more activities for you to do other than just skate, which might seem a little weird because it's it's a skate game, but it's a little bit of a variety, I guess. If you don't want to just skate around all the time, you can do these other little kind of goofy things. But along with that, since obviously you're climbing, you're doing these stunts, they actually kind of give like an in-game explanation of, hey, I could do all this stuff, but I'm not getting hurt. Like there's some kind of like, there's new like medicine or this medical thing that you can do that you should take, and that's why you're not getting hurt within the game, which I found like just hilarious. It's like, it's a skate game, like who cares? It's just a game. Like you didn't have to actually explain that, I guess, but they try to do it in this game, so it's just kind of funny. But yeah, overall, I'm having a good time with the game. Like I said, it's free to play, so there's the stuff that you have to buy, like the in-game money or the in-game money for. It's basically just cosmetic stuff, at least for now. I don't know if they'll ever do anything really else that you can give you an edge or anything on any of the competitions or anything. But for now, it's just buying clothes or buying different wheels for your board or different boards and stuff like that. So, but you can obviously earn that in game, and you're gonna have to grind, which I think is the theme for tonight is grind for that in game cash, and get all those extra doodads and whatnot for your board or for customization for your character. But like I said, I'm really enjoying it. I know there's been some flack about it, but I've had a good time. Like I said, as long as the gameplay's there, I'll stick with it. Any questions on that?
You want to go first, Game Logic?
No, you can go ahead, DBQ.
So you answered one of my questions in terms of kind of the microtransactions and how kind of in your face some of that is. The kind of art style makes sense because they want it playable on as many units as possible. So having it for lower specs on a PC makes sense. Does it feel tight? Like, I mean, one of the things like Skate always felt different than Tony Hawk was that Tony Hawk was a little more arcadey. Skate felt a little tighter in terms of its controls. Where does it land in terms of, like you're saying, it plays fine. Where does it land in terms of controls and from your experience?
I think it's a little bit more forgiving than the older games. Like if you're coming up to a curb, like in the old games, if you came up to a curb, you had to jump over it, ollie over it, as they say, in skating culture. You had to ollie over that curb, otherwise you're going to hit it and just fall down. Here, that's not the case anymore. Like you'll just automatically either like start grinding, or you'll just kind of like pop over it like real quick. Like you kind of almost like automatically do it. Other than that, though, like everything else is pretty spot on. Though, like like I said, you have to use the stick for everything to do all the tricks and stuff. It's not as and then even when you're doing like a grind and stuff, you have to balance yourself when you're going down a rail or going down like a side of I don't know, maybe like stone bench or something like that, or just a regular bench. You have to balance yourself left and right, otherwise you'll just like tip over and fall, or just kind of come off the whatever you're trying to grind. So yeah, it's that part of it's still there. Game Logic, any comments or questions?
Yeah, any major bugs, glitches, crashes, anything like that associated with the game that you've seen?
I have not seen anything yet, and I played pretty much when it came out. I think it came out Tuesday. It was like Tuesday or Wednesday last week, and I've been playing pretty much up until the weekend. I didn't get to play the last couple of days, unfortunately, but I haven't seen anything right now, and as far as I've seen online, I haven't really heard of anything major. So seems to be pretty stable, which is pretty nice. It's a nice change of pace. Just coming from any major game like that. But I mean, like this one's been, I guess, in development for a while too. So hopefully, and coming from EA, and how they get, just trounced on if anything's even slightly off. They're gonna jump on it. But yeah, I haven't seen anything so far. All right. If we don't have anything else for the main GX story, two main and you got some Borderlands 4 coming to us.
Yeah. So just to go back to Game Logic's question about mouse control on the Switch for Puzzle Quest, it does not support mouse on Switch 2. So I believe it's a Switch 1 release that has backwards compatibility or it has forwards compatibility. So yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
It had one more item, a follow up. I was looking it up and didn't get a chance to throw it in. But Skate is another game that is using Frostbite. I was wondering whether or not it was UE5, but it is Frostbite.
Nice. All right. So last week I talked about Borderlands 4 and my initial impressions with it. And since that time, there have been more tech analysis coming out. Lots of people have been having some performance issues with it. Most of it seems to be around shaders, where the shader caching will really start to slow down your frame rates. Digital Foundry did an analysis that the performance really starts to dip. This article is from IGN, as we have up on the screen here. Digital Foundry's video that after about 30 minutes to an hour, it really starts to impact the overall experience. It causes an interruption. There have been people that have had crashes about it. Looking on Reddit, some things around limiting your shaders. Paul Tassi over at Forbes talked about one of his fixes for it was limiting your shaders to 100 gigs, but still experiences some crashes even after that. And to make matters, to compound technical issues even more, Randy Pitchford has been out on X talking about the game being relatively pretty damn optimal, quote unquote, from Randy Pitchford. And as this IGN article also talks about Pitchford's statement of in order to kind of reduce the number of performance issues, to restart the game every hour, which I just had to shake my head about. Like that is a solution at this point without a patch coming. That Pitchford's recommendation is to restart the game. So go ahead.
Just one point of interjection there from a software development perspective. That is not a workaround. So in software, we have this very specific, I don't know what I want to call it, but like there will be people who will say, we have different severities for bugs, right, or defects, and there's a certain classification of defect that's usually, like in the scale that I use, it's usually like a Sev 3, like or this is a significant impact, or maybe it's a Sev 2. This is a significant impact to the application's functionality, but there is a workaround, right? I think that's a Sev 3. And like, if there's not a workaround, then it would be a higher severity, it would be a Sev 2. And like, we frequently get into these arguments where we're like often people will come up and say, we'll just tell them not to use it. And I'm like, time out. That's not a workaround. Not using the function is not a workaround. So rebooting the system at 1 hour, that's not a workaround. That's not a fix.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I noticed this when I was playing on PC, like the amount of time that it takes to load in shaders each time is significantly, it's pronounced compared to on console. But looking at this and reading on this, it seems like the shader issue and the cache issue is the same on Xbox Series X, on PlayStation 5 Pro, that this is not just a PC build, that this is something within the actual game itself. And so no word other than the fact that they acknowledge it and that they're working on a fix. No word on any timeline of when this a patch, or if a patch is even possible. There's some speculation on at the bottom of this article on whether or not this is a memory leak issue, similar to what was seen in Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered, where that had performance issues over time and memory leaks. So yeah, it's, and maybe it's the fact that I'm playing at not at 4K and I'm playing in 1080p on PC that I didn't really notice this too long after playing for 90 minutes. But it definitely, this is disappointing in terms of a big high profile release and already being hit with not only bad performance, but then having Pitchford out there making comments that kind of fly in the face of the users doesn't leave a great taste in a number of people's mouths in terms of people that purchase the game, and some people are already going back and trying to get refunds on Steam and things like that.
So yeah, so it was interesting to see that the root cause of this is that has been discussed at Digital Foundry was a member leak, because I hadn't read the article, but as I looked at like the recommendation on how to address it, I was like, that sounds like a memory leak. And so there are certain programming languages and software that are more disciplined, right, or require more discipline in how you use them. And so C++ is one of those languages. The C type languages are those types of languages, and those are typically the types of languages that video games are coded in. Those programming languages are typically used for things that where you don't want to have a high degree of fault tolerance, meaning your control loops need to be very, very tight. Like there's not a lot of room for error. So things like, I'll just say weapon systems, for instance, are typically coded right in these types of programming languages versus something like Java, right, where it's a web application, it's a business application. Like there's not going to be major, right, there's not going to be a major fault, right, if things topple over, right. That is like you can just refresh the web page, right. Memory leaks are things where, so there's a couple different schools of thought on either end, right? One is there's always a little bit of a memory leak, right? But by the same token, memory leaks can become so severe that typically you want to put guardrails in front at the very beginning of your software development pipeline. So you want to use things like static code analysis. You want to have linting right in your repo to have adherence to style guides, right? That where people exercise good practices in how they allocate and release memory. And so in these programming languages that video games tend to be coded in, you do have to designate memory for consumption and then release memory. And so a memory leak occurs when you're not releasing memory, right? So memory just keeps getting eaten and getting eaten and getting eaten. And then eventually there isn't any more memory left, right, to go around, or there's not sufficient memory left to go around. It's also an attack vector, right? Typically, some people will try and consume all of your memory in order to prevent like security functions from operating in the code. So this is a thing that's bad. For this to happen at 1 hour, like there was an application that I was in charge of, and I like walked onto the project after this thing had been in development for like 6 years, and we were in testing, and I noticed that the app kept toppling over, and so I did some analysis, and I came up with a projection that like, look, this app is not going to stay up for 24 hours, right? It's going to topple over at typically like 23 hours plus some minutes, and you're going to have to bounce the web application service. That was enough for me to say we need to do a code rewrite, because at that point, after the thing's been in development for 6 years, tracking down the memory leak and wrangling it, right, you're not going to find a smoking gun, right? You're going to box it in like little by little by little by little. You're going to be what I call squeegeeing a memory leak into a corner, right? It's going to take forever to get that, and you're never going to have the confidence that you've completely defeated the problem. So when I had my point is, when I had an application that wouldn't stay up for 24 hours, I said code rewrite right after 6 years of development. Here's Borderlands 4 toppling over at 1 hour. Like, this is not going to be a problem that's going to go away like very soon. And it's going to require a ton of effort, right, to hunt this thing down and get it back in a box. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes. And the fact that it's having problems on multiple hardware sets on multiple consoles is also not a great indicator, because the behaviors of that memory leak could be slightly different based on the different hardware sets that it's operating on. And therefore the fixes may behave slightly different for each hardware set that it's on. So yeah, this would just be a game that I would not buy. If you haven't bought Borderlands 4, I just wouldn't. This is the type of thing that I would just say, just stay out of the pool. Like I said about Dragon's Dogma 2 and Monster Hunter
Wilds.
Some of these games that come out like with these severe issues are just things to just stay out of the pool on for several months until they return to at least some means ops. Or to be quite honest, my gut feeling about Borderlands 4, this sounds to me like code that was released either on a Monday morning or a Friday afternoon, and it's never going to be right.
Well, and your example of something that's crashing after 23 hours makes me wonder how they weren't aware of this in QA. Like,
because you do performance testing, you do regression, like you put things in run, and you just like you create automated tests, right? And you just run it for like a day, maybe not a day, right, for this type of application, but you would put it on some type of performance bench, right, like the software equivalent of a treadmill, right, and you would just let it run, and you should have known, right, that this thing was going to topple over, right, within some reasonable amount of a gameplay session that you would expect. So
yeah, it's disappointing. I wish Nate was here in the chat to see if they've encountered this as well, because they were playing it last week along with me. So, Tao, any thoughts here?
No, yeah, I think you guys, and especially Game Logic, thank you, for the software side, software tech side. You can kind of back it up with some of this stuff. Yeah, but I had the same thoughts. It's like, most people are probably going to, or I shouldn't say most people, but a good chunk of people are probably gonna be playing this for probably at least a couple hours. Obviously more than an hour. And just them not seeing this during the quality control is just just kind of weird. But
so Tao, you and I are out of the game now, but like imagine a live streamer like trying to do like this is your content and you're trying to do a stream, and and streamers trying to do these but. There are all types of metrics and thumb rules about like, hey, if you're on Twitch, you need to be live for some period of time, but in order to get enough viewers to like get it. Like this would be horrendous to have to deal with.
Yeah, you'd have to put the old be right back. I gotta reboot my PC, or I guess it's just it's more just the game that you're going to shut down. It's still it's time that you're not on not on the stream, so not doing content. So. All right, DB, you have the
definitely reflected in its Steam reviews, right? Like, it's mixed in its Steam reviews. Those negatives are all mainly people who are talking about it in terms of its performance. So let's move on to the next story here. The next one is looking at August revenue charts from Newzoo. So we've talked about Newzoo before as an industry kind of reporting agency. This is just a quick spot here for the August in terms of revenue. So that not only includes full console or full release sales, but also in-game purchases, things like that. Not a lot of big surprises, but also it's interesting to look at it in terms of revenue, because obviously Fortnite is first. Madden pops up here as number 2, but then you have things like Counter-Strike in number 3. Helldivers jumps back up because of its Xbox release and the Halo crossover. Modern Warfare is not a surprise. It's interesting to see Ready or Not be in the top 10 over the last 2 months. Again, Roblox, Minecraft, not a surprise there. Valorant, but I think really Ready or Not it's a good sign for that. It is a small team. It just had their console release last month as well, so that's good performance for them. Any titles here that stood out to you, gentlemen?
I think with Ready or Not too, they had their 1.0 a few months ago too, or a couple months ago, so that probably helped a lot. That kind of kept them going. And then, like you said, yeah, the console release is good. I guess, and I see Mafia. Not that I'm a Mafia player, but Mafia: The Old Country is up there in number 6, so that's cool. See a new game up there. Anything on your end, Game Logic?
No, I'm more kind of trying to pull apart like why the sudden shift to using Newzoo. Like the NPD numbers for August won't be out, I think, until later this week or next week.
It's usually the third week of the month. Yeah.
Except for some months. Some months it gets delayed longer. Like actually, now that I think about it, I think the NPD numbers may not be out till the first week of October. There are some months that they will take longer to get out for whatever reason. And I think this is one that's not coming out until the first week of October. So I wonder. So my problem is I just don't know the pedigree behind these numbers the same way that we do, like NPD. Like I don't know what's not digital in here. I don't know. And are these? This is also an aggregate, right? So it's not just U.S. numbers like we normally get with NPD.
Yeah, NPD or
yeah.
Or whatever MPD is called now, but yes, yeah.
Yeah, they're called Circana. I refuse to use their name.
No, and I think, Newzoo is international. It's done a number of reports that we've kind of cited here over the last year or so, but it does seem kind of a new player in this market.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Newzoo. I typically use Newzoo for typically annual or multi-year looks, the same way that I use Statista. I tend, I tend not to use them for these shorter looks, but yeah, it's I mean, obviously Helldivers 2 jumping up from 37 to number 4 worldwide, off of its release on Xbox. And again, we don't, we don't have the visibility to know, what platforms drove that revenue. So Mafia the Old Country is good. I think it also popped on the NPD charts. Ready or Not, I think you mentioned. And I mean, and this is another thing, like NPD never has Roblox on there because Roblox doesn't report via their intake funnel. So yeah, EA Sports FC 25, I think I mentioned on the NPD charts as well. It's crazy to me that in August, when the new game is coming out in this month, that it's still up there. But of course, these are also, and this is another thing that's different than the NPD. The NPD charts are just sales, so it doesn't include the microtransactions. Right. This is total revenue,
and which I think is an interesting piece because it puts in things like Fortnite and Roblox and World of Warcraft into context with kind of full-on releases like Madden and Mafia.
Yeah, which is another way in which it dilutes the Helldivers 2 number, right? Because we don't know if that's a bunch of war bonds, right, or sales on Xbox.
Oh, sure, right. Especially because of the Halo crossover, like people could have been buying war bonds related to that more than the Xbox individual unit sales.
Yeah, but I mean, it's also, but like you said, it's a good look to see. There's a lot of narrative out there that basically nobody wants to play anything but Roblox and Minecraft. And so it's interesting to see that, okay, there's some credence to be given to that, but then you have a game like Ready or Not, which is an indie game, which is not a high, it's not a AAA like big zeitgeist title. I don't think even a lot of people like even know about Ready or Not still. And here it is on the chart, Mafia the Old Country coming in higher than Roblox and Minecraft. So yeah, it's an interesting look.
All right, let's keep on the finances here. Game Logic, you have the next couple of news articles. First up being the PC gaming market and how it's going lately.
Yeah, just give me a second to get my screens.
Some more sales numbers.
Yeah, so this news story over on WCC F-Tech, PC gaming market goes into overdrive mode. Hardware sales grow by 35% to hit $44.5 billion. This news story by Hassan Mushtaba. PC gaming hardware market has seen its biggest growth in years, aiming for a record 35% growth in 2025 and $44.5 billion in sales. In a new report published by John Petty Research, the firm reports that the PC gaming market is all set to hit a record of 35% growth in 2000. This would net up to, it's like 3 times. It says the same numbers all over again. The PC hardware segment alone from gamers, and is expected to retain the $40 billion plus trend through 2028. The research is based on the sales of PC gaming hardware, which includes desktop, notebook PCs, AIBs, and so those are GPUs, NVIDIA and AMD GPUs sold by third-party vendors, right? So Asus sources the chips from NVIDIA and then puts them on their own board, and so those types of vendors are called AIBs. Are all, I think that's all in boards, and gaming peripherals. The main reason cited for this massive increase is Windows 11, which has set new hardware requirements, prompting gamers to either upgrade their existing PCs with new hardware or buy pre-built PCs based on newer hardware. So what I can't tell in here is, does this include everything in the DIY space, which would include things like motherboards, CPUs, power supplies, things like that. But at any rate, what it shows an increasing trend, a huge increasing trend from 2024 to 2025. I would guess that is because at the end of 2024, we had AMD come out with new processors, Intel come out with new processors, and both AMD and NVIDIA come out with new GPUs. In a lot of cases on the GPU side, those products weren't actually available into, like, we turned the corner into 2025. So I think you've had a huge uptick in sourcing those components. By the same token, you probably do have a lot of people who have been on Windows 10 forever, who are not PC builders or not DIY people, and just buy pre-configured boxes, and have been boogeymaned by Windows 10 going out of support here in October 2025, and just elected to just buy new PCs. I think a lot of this is probably driven also by people buying handheld PCs, because I suspect they are also in this bucket. Again, those numbers aren't huge, but you do have a lot more becoming available this year. All the way from the beginning of the year, you have new processors, right, with the Z1 Extreme, Z2 Extreme, and things coming out. So that probably also carried the day. That trend is projected to carry into 2026, and then there will be a dip in 2027. I'm not sure what that's driven by, other than I wonder, typically what we see is when new consoles come out, there will be a dip in PC hardware spending. Until the new consoles have been out for a couple years, and then PC hardware spending will pick back up. So I don't know if that's, or what's that's trend is oriented around. Report also highlights that the entry-level PC gaming market is projected to shrink by 13% over the next 5 years. It is said that around 10 million PC gamers are expected to migrate to other platforms, such as consoles, handhelds, and mobile, which might be understandable from a cost point of view, but it looks like a healthy dose of entry-level PC gamers will stick to the PC platform itself, but move to a higher tier of PC hardware, such as mid-range or even high-end. And so that's interesting that you will see that as new consoles come out, as you have things like PS5 Pro with the beef up, and you see costs getting close. And I've talked about this before, how, when you have consoles increasing in price, you start getting more comparisons, right, between the console price and entry-level PCs. But it's interesting to see that people will begin kind of vacating the entry-level PC space and either move upscale or downscale in terms of the value ladder. Anything in here surprise you guys or interest you otherwise?
None. Nothing for me. DB, any comments?
I think just the uptick in overall, and it'd be interesting to see, as you said, how much of this is broken out by handheld PCs and what that market looks like. But it's a strong indicator in terms of PC growth at a time when, as our next news story we'll talk about, console gaming becomes increasingly more and more expensive.
Yeah, Nate has dropped in the chat, so thanks a lot for coming through, Nate. We appreciate you.
Yep. All right, Game Logic, you want to jump into that news story about the price increase again? Because I believe this is the second one, right? of this year or the past year-ish.
It is. So this news story over on Game Developer by Bryant Francis. Xbox Series X price rises to $650 in US due to macroeconomic conditions. Microsoft is raising the price of Xbox Series X and Series S consoles due to changes in the macroeconomic environment. Starting on October 3rd, 2025, the price of Microsoft's flagship consoles will rise between 5 and 8%, depending on the model. The cheapest Xbox, a 512 gigabyte Xbox Series S, will cost $400, up from 5% from $380, and a standard Xbox Series X will cost $650. This is the second time Microsoft has increased the price of its Xbox consoles in 2025 in the United States. In May, it announced a major price hike that saw the Series S jump from $300 to $380, and the Series X jump from $500 to $600. I mean, my comments on this: the price of the Series S doesn't entirely surprise me. I think, like, look, despite price increases, and yes, I get it, things are getting hard on everyone. What I will still say is that despite the way some people feel about gaming offers a very wide swath in terms of where you want to get in, right? And so now the low entry price point is $400, and then you can scale up right from there to decide wherever it is that you want to come in if you're just now getting into gaming. So a thing about tariffs. So the current tariffs that we have in place are I should say, I don't want to say the suspension, but the restrained tariffs that we have right now could get worse on November 10th at midnight. On November 10th at midnight, the manner in which tariffs have been held back, and particularly as they impact China, whatever deal has been made to restrain them will expire. And so it's very questionable right now whether or not the Trump administration will either extend that moratorium or go ahead and let them escalate from there. The U.S. and China met, I think, in Madrid in August to conduct trade discussions. I don't think anything public has come out of those trade discussions at a very granular level, but I think what I'm relatively comfortable saying is I don't think a fix came out of those discussions. Otherwise, we would have heard about that. I think this plays also into a lot into why the Asus ROG Xbox Ally and Ally X come out in less than 30 days, and we have yet to have a price for those. You can't pre-order those. I think Microsoft right now is playing the foxtrot, right, doing the two-step and kind of seeing where tariffs are going to land when they can even make their best guess. Again, this is analogous to the Nintendo Switch 2 thing, right? Where Nintendo was like, what are we going to do? And when the dates hit before this expiry of the current conditions that are set on the 10th of November, obviously they have to set a price on the ROG Ally X, on the Xbox ROG Ally X before then. But I think it's a matter of pumping the administration and people who are in the know as much as they can to get as much information as they can, and waiting until the last minute until they absolutely have to make a decision to set prices. I think in this case with the Xbox, they went ahead and pulled the trigger and said, look, whatever's going to happen, right? The situation is probably unlikely to get better. So let's just go ahead and set the prices based on the way we expect the winds to blow. Mike Ibarra said something on Twitter where he said, this is not all entirely due to tariffs. I have a tendency to agree with Mike very much in his rearward look and comments on Xbox since leaving the company. But this is an instance where what I often talk about is that there's a lot of granularity and nuance in our conversations about gaming, and there's often an effort to squeegee all that granularity and nuance out of the conversation, right? I don't think Mike was trying to deliberately do that, and so where I stand is okay, Mike, yes, the total story is not just tariffs. But I think for every single one of these companies that has raised prices, both in gaming and external gaming, the total tale of the tape is never entirely been tariffs, right? It's been tariffs and other stuff. So yes, right, there might be more behind the Microsoft price increases on Xbox with regards to like where they are in terms of market share and, you know, an appetite for subsidizing consoles, given that they're trying to divert right investment dollars towards AI. Yes. However, I don't think you can take tariffs entirely off the table and say that just that environment around that specific dynamic, but also just the vast amount of uncertainty in all markets is causing people to hedge their bets, right? I think, you know, you could definitely say that that's a catalyst, and that's a very acute pinch point. And then sure, maybe there's other stuff associated with it. So I don't know. Tao, DBQ, what are your guys' thoughts?
I just have to. I mean, I think your analysis is strong, spot on. Like it is tariffs, but it's more than that. There's a number of factors. I'm just shaking my head at the fact that I can remember when the Series S launched at what $299, but also was on sale constantly. There was the first 2 holiday seasons where you could pick up a Series S for $199. Like, that's yeah. I mean, it makes you feel good about being an early adopter when you picked up an Xbox Series X at $150 less than it is now.
Yeah, I mean, I do have to say from a recommendation standpoint, like if you're a new gamer, right, coming into the space, or if you're a lapsed gamer coming into the space, like I don't know. I mean, I guess probably my recommendation for you at this point would be to try and buy something used. Like don't pay new prices, right? Particularly because of where we are in the generation. Like these consoles are likely to be superseded in 2 years. So, to make an investment at a cost higher than the launch price for something that really only has 2 years of being like the preeminent console, right, for each vendor, I just don't know that I would do that. I mean, I would probably say at this point, probably look at, saving 3 times as much money to get into PC gaming. Maybe buy a handheld gaming PC if that like attracts you. Like as much as they are from an increased price standpoint, I think there's an argument and a discussion to be had whether or not $8, $9, $1,000 handheld gaming PC is a better investment than a Series S or a Series X, right? Just in terms of like, yes, but that handheld gaming PC runs on Windows 11, will probably be able to be upgraded to Windows 12. It's probably going to last you a lot longer. It will probably have better trade-in value than a Series X or a Series S. So it's a troubling time to be thinking about getting it or go in low end on the Switch 2. I think just in terms of what you expect to get from supportability, but again, Nintendo's not like the platform for every type of gaming consumer, right? Depending on what you're looking for. So it's just a really confusing time, right, to get in. And I do have to say, I mean, I think your best bet, although I know everybody's not in this like this economic demographic, your best bet in terms of longevity and how long a thing will last and probably how much ROI you're going to get out of it, probably at this point is probably to go PC. But don't go entry level. Get a box that is going to perform and is going to last you right for a few years before you look at having to upgrade.
Yeah, I was looking back too. I couldn't remember if PlayStation had increased their price, and they did a couple months ago, back in August. I forgot about $50 for each of their SKUs. So it went up $500 for their digital edition, $550 for the disc, and then up to $750 for the Pro. So, I mean, depending on the levels, I mean, Xbox is cheaper still, but obviously it's still expensive. I mean, if you look at it, just overall. But yeah, it's unfortunate that just on everything that's going on. But I guess my question is too, if for some reason, tariffs go away, are those prices going down as much as they went up? So there's always that. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to be the case. All right.
Yeah, and it's more expensive for the top. Well, it's not more expensive for the top tier, right? I mean, because the PlayStation 5 Pro, which comes with a 2 terabyte drive, really would be compared against the Xbox 2 terabyte, right? Which is what, $799 now. So I think so my takeaway is from a cost perspective right now today, on hardware, the PlayStation 5 I think is cheaper SKU to SKU, right, 1-to-1. But if you want to go this route, and I never buy this with the PC argument, but some PC gamers will make the argument that, hey, you spend more on PC for hardware, but then you're going to come out ahead, right, lifetime in buying games because the games are always cheaper. So I will still contend, just like I did at the beginning of this generation, right? If you want to go Xbox and you're interested in Game Pass, right, you're going to wind up. You could arguably justify in your mind, if I bought one new game for a console every month, 70 times 12, and then look at at what pace would you kind of make that money back by just spending on Game Pass and not buying new games. Could be right a rationalization you could make in your mind and see how you would come out upside.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's jump into our segment 3, unless there's any other comments on that last news story or any other news stories.
My only other thing was Brap is also checked into the chat, so thanks a lot, Brap, for coming through.
Yep, thanks for stopping by. Game Logic, stay on the mic. You got the Crew Motorfest that you've been playing as of late.
Yep. So like I said, I've diverted from story stuff to get into stuff that's the grind. And so I've gone back to the Crew Motorfest, which has, as is true with every Ubisoft game, not every Ubisoft game, but true with a lot of Ubisoft games, has enjoyed a second life with all the content that Ubisoft is delivering, as well as improvements. If you guys remember when I first played Crew Motorfest, I cited it as, yes, being very Forza Horizon-like in its structure, but also suffering from a lot of bugs, glitches, performance problems, etc. I still see performance problems. I'm playing it at 1440p in performance mode, so targeting 120, and I still see. First of all, game's definitely guilty of pop-in, but I still see moments of slowdown, right, when a lot of things are coming on the screen. But on top of that, from a design perspective, and I'm not subscribed to Game Pass, so I don't have cloud saves now. So, the game's restarting me. I'm playing, I've been playing through the first 2 playlists in the campaign, which are Japan and Japan 2. And the vast majority of these tracks are nighttime in the wet. And it's hard for me to imagine a more annoying entry rampway into a driving campaign than that. It's super dark, and just tons of the roadways are wet, and then there's a puddle that you can't see. And so then you're driving Japanese cars, incredibly twitchy, rear wheel drive. No weight in the back end. So you've got the RX-7, the Supra, the GC35. These things, the back end breaks out on them because you blow too hard on the controller, right? So you're in a turn. You're constant, there's no way to drive these cars other than trail braking. So your feet are constantly on pedal and brake, right, at differing levels of pressure. And then you'll be in a turn, hanging in the turn, totally under control. Put 0 additional input on the gas. You will hit some phantom puddle that you can't see, right? And the back end will break out on the thing, and it'll just go all over the place. And it won't in recovering is almost impossible. So, it has been fun, but also annoying as heck. And it's 15 races, right, to get through these first 2 playlists. So I've been having fun. Sometimes there's fun in that challenge of like wrangling the RX-7, right, to get it to handle well in the turn. And then you also have races where it's like, Grid had these, and I forget what they're called, but and Need for Speed had these too, but they're like one-on-one battles, like uphill and downhill with a ton of switchbacks. And again, like in Japan in the wet, or Japanese style tracks, you're technically in Hawaii. But then there's also been like, I'll rerun a race like 10 times, right? Because in addition to the problems with the track in the night, then you get the AI constantly pit maneuvering you right in a corner. So it's just aggravating. There's also little things like I'll say less fidelity than you have in some other racing games, where like the upgrade pathway for individual cars that you buy, they're just random parts. But there's no like description of the parts. There's no telling you like, you know, these are the sports pistons versus the race pistons versus like, you know, this is increasing or decreasing like your total engine volume, or like there's none of that like detailed articulation like there is in like a Gran Turismo or a Forza Motorsport or an Assetto Corsa. Like they're just parts with a performance score number by them, and then as you like cursor over, right, or switch boxes, which one's highlighted, then you see the performance number change, right? There's also like, there's no telling, like they're just a bunch of, and then there's just a bunch of empty boxes right in the pathway for upgrading a certain element of your car without me being able to tell, like, okay, there's a 6-part upgrade pathway like for this component of our subsystem of the car, and I've got 3, right? It's just kind of slightly randomized schlock. But in general, the racing experience is pretty cool. I think you've got to do a ton of things to get to a point where you can do fast travel. So that's also a little annoying. Like going back to, so the Japan 2 playlist takes place in Maui. So where you leave like the menu and go into the in-game free roam mode is always kind of in the same place. And so if you leave off partway through the Maui campaign, the nearest race is always like 15 miles away, and there's no way to fast travel to it. So you just have to drive over there. Like, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. So there's things like that, you know, are all reasons why this game is not like an 8 or a 9 driving game. It's like a 6 or a 7. And I haven't gotten to the point of like the motorcycles and the planes and the boats, which I really, quite frankly, don't even want to be bothered with. But you are getting to drive some pretty classic cars. Along the way, you're constantly being given loaner vehicles, so I'm not even at the point where like the upgrades on my car even matter. Like I'm just upgrading the car, and the only impact is that I experience it while I'm driving, like from race to race, because in each race they give you a loaner, right? Because the car has to be like specific to whatever playlist you're in. So at any rate, you know, I'm having a fine time with it. I did break out my Thrustmaster TMX wheel and pedals. And so wheel and pedal handling is better than it is in Forza Horizon. Whereas with Forza Horizon, I've just given up on using wheel and pedals and I just use controller. But this one has pretty decent wheel and pedal implementation and ton of content, ton of content. Like, you know, with the playlist that just came packaged with the game, and then they're adding stuff to it along the way. So it's a good time.
Nice. All right. Oh, actually, one quick question. I'm sorry, I was looking at something up while you were talking. Is this like in Forza Horizon where you can kind of see other people? You obviously can't interact or like slam into them unless you like, you know, start a match or start a race or, you know, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, this is kind of annoying in the Test Drive Unlimited way, that, you know, the TDU that showed up on the Xbox 360 where you were in Hawaii. In Forza, you can turn off whether or not you see actual players, right? And then otherwise, and if you do, then all that you see is they're just AI, they're just avatars. They're named like the people on your friends list, but they're not really people. In this, you can't turn that off, as far as I know. So you see everybody in the real world. This is another thing. This is another annoying factor. Like when you're transiting to go someplace, you often can't tell like the difference between like a player, and when you get close to players, they fade out, and so you can't bump into them like while you're transiting. But in many cases, the AI is driving around in similar cars. So there'll be like Dodge Challengers and Dodge Chargers on the road. And you can't tell that they're AI until you're like right on top of them. And so if you're running around the island, which you can argue I shouldn't be running around the island at 150 miles per hour, but if you are running around the island, you sometimes don't know that somebody's going to like fade out and you're going to be able to clip through them until you're right on top of them. So.
All right, nice. All right, and thanks, Infinite Umbra, for dropping by the comments. DB, you got a Dragon Quest game you've been playing on a couple systems, different systems.
Yeah, so this is more of an experiment than it is like a gameplay analysis. So this is Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D. It came out last fall. I picked it up actually over the holiday back in 2024 on Xbox, but recently grabbed a copy or rented a copy from a local library of the Switch edition, because the Switch edition has a Switch 2 upgrade. And so in part, I wanted to see the difference between the Switch and the Switch 2 upgrade. For something like this, the upgrade is about 8.3 gigs of a download. And it definitely looks better than the Switch edition, even with the, again, playing only on handheld, that it looks not quite as crisp as playing on Xbox Series X on a 1080p. But that's not playing in handheld. And as last week I talked about playing Xbox games on my Steam Deck through XB Play, this was one of those games that I played frequently on Steam Deck, so I was used to a little bit of fuzziness. But I think really for me, it's Dragon Quest 3. It is a classic JRPG. It's always a little slow to get going. Story is strong. I'm not that far into the Switch version of it, but really what I wanted to do was to see the difference between the Switch 2 upgrades, because there's a number of Square games coming out this fall that I'm interested in that would be nice to have on Switch 2. Nice to have in handheld. At the end of this month, we get the Final Fantasy Tactics Ivalice edition. Then in October, we get Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D. And then the Octopath Traveler 0, which is kind of a remixed version of the mobile game, stripping out all the microtransactions. But there's a Switch version on cartridge for all three of those games, and there is a Switch 2 version on cartridge for all three of those games, but it's only a game key card. It's not actually a game, and there's no upgrade path. There's not a $10 upcharge once you have one or the other. So there is that part of me that appreciates having a physical copy of certain things, especially something like Final Fantasy, that it would be nice to have a physical copy of. Final Fantasy Tactics, and this was a kind of a test of how big of an upgrade visually am I getting between the Switch and the Switch 2, and is that upgrade worthwhile enough to make me not care about having a physical copy of something. So I guess the answer is, in this case with Dragon Quest 3, it is, I would have been fine without the Switch 2 upgrade, looking how it played on Switch 1. But it's also not a game that I would, feel like I want a historic kind of a legacy copy to sit on a shelf somewhere to come back to in a decade or more. So yeah, I guess it's less about the game, right? It's a perfectly fine game, and it's a great classic JRPG. It is going to take more than 40 hours, to Game Logic's comment back in the beginning of the podcast, but definitely it is a question of, for me, it's much more about when I'm looking at multi-platform releases and thinking of my Switch 2, where does that where does that land? As Infinite Umbra just said, like outside of Bonanza, Switch 2 hasn't seen a whole lot of action. That is absolutely the case for me as well. Infinite Umbra. Earlier in the podcast, I was talking about playing the new Puzzle Quest release on Switch 2, and that's been the first time. That's the first game other than Donkey Kong that I've played on the Switch 2 for a good number. Well, for the last 2 months, probably.
So what you could still just play that game, like you just played like the Switch version on the Switch 2, right, without having to upgrade, or do you have to upgrade?
You wouldn't have to upgrade. Like it tells you there's an upgrade available. In this case, it's a free upgrade, so it was easy enough to download and upgrade. It's not like, you know, the Trails game that just came out has a $1 upgrade from Switch to Switch 2. You know, the Zeldas where you have a $10 upgrade. You know, it was a free upgrade. With the Square games coming out this fall, there's no free or paid upgrade, and so it is. Yeah, it would play perfectly fine. You'd get the performance increases because of the, I would think, right, because of the stronger processing power.
Hardware,
right. But you wouldn't get any type of graphical upgrade in between the two. And probably if you're only playing on handheld, it's probably not going to be that much of a difference. But it really makes me want to wait and look at reviews of the two different editions, or what the Switch 2 edition brings to these other Square games that are coming out this fall.
All right, nice. All right, let me jump into my second game, actually a new game that I've been playing, another early release game, actually, Jump Space. I've been playing this on PC and Steam Deck. Steam Deck, it's not verified, but I just want to throw it on there and to see how it plays. It's a little rough right now, so frame rate's kind of bad, and just resolution and all that. I might have to go in there and kind of tweak some stuff. I didn't really do that when I only played it, like tried it once. I just wanted to jump in there and see how it was. So I might have to go in and kind of tweak all that. But I mean, otherwise it was playing fine. Like, I mean, I could, you know, gameplay was fine, and you know, graphically it was all right, obviously, like I just said. But on PC, you know, it's playing great. This is like a co-op PvE game, so no PvP right now. I don't know if there's a roadmap for that later on. But although there is, like, when you go into the main menu, you know, you can start the game, but there is a server browser section. So I'm not really sure what that's about, because there is no PvP as far as I know. So I don't know why you would need browsers, but maybe
I'm sure that people will make mods.
Yeah, that's the only thing I was thinking. Yeah, that they'll do that.
I'm sure there will be Star Wars mods and Star Trek mods.
Yeah, Star Trek, little Battlestar Galactica maybe. But in this game, you can jump into a ship, and there's ship battles. But then you can also jump onto planets or asteroid base or other bases and stuff, and, you know, take on the AI or the computer, you know, in the game. There's also, you can actually go into space, you know, when you're outside your ship, and kind of float around. And there's, like, most of the time when I'm doing that kind of spacewalking stuff, I'm kind of just looking for extra stuff within the area. And when these areas are kind of I'd say bigger areas, it's not like totally open world, but just kind of a large area they give you to kind of play around in, so you can kind of like spacewalk. And there might be like a little secret, like some gear or something you can find, or just, you know, something special. But so far that's the only time I've kind of spacewalked. And now they kind of touted that, though, within like kind of the trailers and just kind of write-ups and stuff, that you can go in and, you know, do a lot of spacewalking and stuff. But other than that, you know, a little bit, I haven't really seen, you know, I need to do it really that much. There was one time, actually, now that I think about this last mission I had gone on, where I had finished like the main mission, and I'm flying away, and I see this like kind of giant ship, like just kind of flying around. It wasn't attacking me or anything. So I was like, you know, I wonder if I could take that out. So I could. It was like super tanky. So yeah, you know, I was going at it for quite a while. But finally I was able to, you know, disable it. You know, it just kind of, I didn't destroy it when I finally got all its, you know, health down. It just kind of like was just floating in space. So I was able to like jump over to it and, you know, just take out some, I forgot. There's like the two that I've done so far. There's just like one object I was able to take from the ship itself. So I don't know if like further on you can, you know, jump into larger ships or take others, you know, stuff from it, but it was kind of weird that I was only able to take like one item from it.
So what do you use with that? Is that object something that you can use for an upgrade or use within your own ship? How does that kind of?
Yeah, you can break it down if you want into what they call materia, which is basically kind of like their in-game currency, basically to upgrade stuff. Or you can just like, I think it'll just get sold off like when you go back to your base, your main like kind of hub area. And also right now I'm playing that was the other thing too. Like you can play the prologue. So I don't know, like I don't know if the prologue is just like the early access piece. Like later on, it'll be like a full story, or you can do other stuff. So that was the other kind of weird thing. So I don't know how deep this piece goes since it's just early access. I played probably maybe like an hour and a half or so. But it's pretty fun though. Like when you're in your hub area, there's a little terminal you go to, say, hey, I want to do, and there's like a giant map that you can look at, and there's different, little spots you can go to. So once you pick one of those spots, once you start the mission, you flip over to almost like kind of like a roguelite, where it shows like different tracks you can kind of go through that main mission that you're doing. So there's almost like in like Slay the Spire, where there's like 3 different tracks you can go down, and depending on where you go, you might get. It tells you what you can get. Like it tells you can get materia. It says you can get consumables, or it's just kind of like almost like a free space where you can just kind of like fix your ship if you had to, or just kind of tool around with your ship and customization and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting that they kind of went down that route too on that end. But the only thing is you can't go like once you take a track, you can't like backtrack and stuff, which I think you kind of like in the other games too. You can't really do that. So because there's I didn't realize that, and there's like a thing where you can get upgrades for your ship, where it gives you like a buff or something, for shields or weapons or whatever it happens to be. There's one weird one. I think they're called relics, I believe. There's one I got where if I'm holding a pizza, that's what it says. If you're holding the pizza, your melee damage is like, I don't know, 100% more, 50% more, or something like that. I was like, okay, I haven't even seen a pizza yet, so I don't know what that even is. So it's kind of weird. So I think they have like regular things like defense and weapons and stuff, but then they have kind of like goofy stuff like that where they kind of give you a buff for holding a pizza for some reason. I don't know why. It's kind of weird. But so far, yeah, go ahead.
So can you talk to me a little bit about the mission structure? Because so this is a game that is, as again, on this arc where I'm going to get back to the grind. And Star Citizen, right, is back on my list to get back into. This is one, and Elite Dangerous, and like Everspace 2 and all this stuff. This is one that is ranked very high on my list as one that I want to check out. But so the description around the game is that that there are some similarities to Left 4 Dead. So one thing, sorry, there's a commercial playing on this guy's YouTube channel, or an Xbox Series YouTube channel.
Okay.
What is going on here? So what is that mission structure like? Like it's, so do you queue up with people and then go on like a 15-minute mission, and then on Left 4 Dead, they'll populate the rest of your team with AI. If you don't get human beings to join in, what is that setup like for this?
So far, I've only been playing it solo, and I thought like when you go to queue up for the mission, it tells you it's like, hey, there's like a countdown, like a 10-second countdown. I believe it is, and I thought, okay, maybe they're just gonna like pop some people in there, but it didn't. So I don't know if maybe that's just part of the server thing too. Like if you play that prologue, I'm thinking that's just like, so you're just solo. I think maybe then when you go to those servers, then it'll queue you up with people, because otherwise you're just solo. It doesn't even give you like AI, companions or anything like that. You're just kind of on your own. So it's kind of nice, just like if you just want to play solo.
Yeah, that's another thing I need to. I mean, it's here. I mean, it's showing 4 people right in the party going in.
That's like the end when they're telling you how you did and all that, or where it showed it all for. Yeah.
Because one thing I'm not clear on, like when you exit the ship, when you're into like jump space, when you're into jump space combat, like you're in 0G combat, or when you're going to board people, or when you get to a planet or like that, I understand what they're doing. But like what I don't understand, like when they're on the ship, like what are they doing? Do they man guns? Are they able to help you out? Or what goes on with that? So I'm very curious.
there's different stations, and there's weapon systems, and there's like an engineering section where that person can buff up the shields or engines or whatnot, whatever they want to do and stuff like that. So yeah. And then when I was going through this prologue, like I was kind of gated off from a lot of the ship at first. Like I only had access to basically just to go outside, like either side of the ship you can go outside, or like the cockpit area was kind of the little hub area you can go to. So now I've opened up like a couple of different areas now, like weapons and like I said, like engineering and stuff. So I think as you're going, it kind of like opens up the ship a little bit more. There's kind of a story to it, why you're kind of locked off from it too. So I don't want to give that out, but at least they kind of explain it, that reason. But yeah, I think it would be pretty fun, to do this with other people. It looked like from what I was reading, and maybe like as you're kind of going, the difficulty, and this might be kind of later down the line, it kind of spikes a little bit, I guess. And not only that, but like I guess they don't give you the resources for you to try to survive these kind of wave-based missions that happen sometimes. So and that happen. The waves happen either in space, like when you're going right here, or like when you land and you're like going through a base, or like if it's like a giant ship, whatever that happen the missions to be, and you have to actually get on the ground and shoot things. So, but I haven't hit that yet. I'm probably still just too early, maybe. I don't know, but I haven't seen that part yet. But I know this is kind of part of it.
This is a game that I want to play, but like I said, I suspect there'll be a significant community component to this to really have fun with it, and obviously it's going to force you to play with a community. This is a community that I can see, because it's sci-fi and it's heavily system based, that this community is either going to be really friendly, like the Ready or Not community, or really toxic.
Yeah, it doesn't give me a lot of
for the warp engines to get up the shield, you noob.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of what's the one with the kind of dwarf characters where you're
Deep Rock Galactic.
Yep.
Deep Rock Galactic, yeah, but just in space. But you're not digging stuff; you're just like fighting instead of doing
and that one was much more. It was much more kind of first person shootery, much more kind of. I don't know that Minecraft is the right description, but like it's so much, it's more like grounded, right? Much more about like exploration and kind of solving the puzzle of like the geography that I feel like that community was not as, and because it was almost like a hero shooter almost, because each like dwarf has like their own specialty and stuff like that. So I don't know. Yeah, but I'm super. I'm glad you played it, because it's definitely something I've got my eye on and contemplating jumping into.
Yeah. Also, when you're doing the space battles, as far as I can tell, you can't. It's always in third person. You can't go into a first person mode.
Yeah, there's no HOTAS support. Any flight control system joystick support is based entirely on like if that thing maps to like an Xbox controller. And in spaceship battles, it's only third person. Like there's no like in cockpit view.
Unfortunately,
the devs have taken that feedback and like are considering it, but there's nothing like it's on their roadmap kind of thing.
Yeah, and when I'm playing on PC, normally I would just do mouse and keyboard, but when I do the space battles, I have to switch to the controller, because it's just I think I have to go back in there and just like mess with the sensitivity, because doing it with the mouse, like moving around with the mouse, it's just way too sensitive for me. And then it always does that with a lot of games, like No Man's Sky, Star Citizen was the same thing. I would just switch the controller when I was when I was doing the space stuff, because it was just easier for me to control that way. But I probably just have to go in there and play with the settings. I'm gonna definitely continue on with that, and maybe I'll try to get my friend to play. Usually he's the one that, hey, let's play this game now. I'll turn the tables on him and see if he wants to play this game, because it is pretty fun when you're going through and doing all these battles and stuff. So, all right, Game Launcher, you got the last game for us for our round robin section.
Yeah, I won't spend all of it because I do have one piece of follow-up that I want to go back to. But yeah, I've been playing Madden NFL 26 on the Xbox. It's actually, I know people don't have a very high opinion of Madden, but it's actually, I think, a pretty sharp football game this year. graphics are good. Running game is good. Passing game is good. Leading, lagging passers is good. Not a ton of like, flypaper type, static electricity catches. Some kind of animations that are like, wait, but I mean, you kind of always have that in games. It's tuned very well. I feel like opposing teams don't have this, like, they can't complete a pass to save their lives, but somehow miraculously a 3rd and 22, they like always complete a pass for a first down. Right. Like, so like even college football, I feel like suffers from that a little bit right now. But I don't feel like I'm getting that in Madden. I've had 2 pretty close call games. And I'm playing the Cincinnati Bengals, so lost to the Jaguars by a field goal. Lost to the Minnesota Vikings by a field goal because I got it within field goal kicking range, 52-yarder. My kicker had it for accuracy, but it actually hit the T-bar on the goalpost. So nice bit of drama. And then they came back and got within field goal range. And even though I froze their kicker with a timeout, they were so close that like they weren't going to miss it. So it's working out pretty good. I'm kind of liking the feel of it, and I haven't had to go in and monkey with sliders a ton. I'm playing just like the middle, like semi-pro level or whatever. And it seems like it's matching up pretty well. The one thing I did want to go back and hit from our previous news story is the price comparison on the Xbox Series X versus PlayStation 5. So the Xbox Series X with disc right now is $650. The PlayStation 5 with disc is $550. So the Xbox Series X is $100 more. Again, going back to that thing that I said, if you could convince yourself that, hey, if I'm going to do Game Pass and not buy new games, but if I buy a PlayStation 5, I'm going to have to buy new games, and say, hey, I'm going to buy 1 new game a month. Your break-even point is about 2 months. So after 2 months of owning an Xbox Series X, you will have that $100 rate delta of which you have saved from not buying 2 new games for $70 a piece at $140. You will have spent $40 being in Game Pass Ultimate, and you'll have major $100 back, right? So that's the price comparison you could make if you're in your value system, those first party games that are coming in day and date, plus the back catalog of stuff you haven't played, makes up that price difference for you.
All right, nice. All right, let's jump into our last segment here, or our last thing here, significant releases for the coming week. And also, thank you, Ghostface Killer, for joining us there in the comments. We got on the 25th, September 25th, a couple of games. Hades 2 on Nintendo Switch 2 editions coming out. Now that's coming out that's console exclusive, but it is still coming out for PC. So you will get that the 1.0 release. If you had early access on PC, you will get the full release on that date. November 20th is the actually physical release of Hades 2. If you want to wait until then to pick it up, or buy both, who knows? Also coming out for Switch 1, which I didn't realize. I thought it was only the Switch 2. So you will get a Switch 1 edition of this. Also coming out that same day, Sonic Racing Cross World. So Mario Kart esque racing game that's coming out for pretty much everything: PS4, 5, Switch 1 and 2, Xbox One, and Xbox Series, and also on PC. And then on September 26th, and Game Logic had alluded to this earlier, we have EA Sports FC 26 come out for PS5, Switch 1 and 2, and Xbox and PC. So anything there that is, I think, Game Logic, you're probably looking at FC 26?
Probably, definitely, certainly.
Nice. Certainly. DV?
I might give FC 26 a try through the EA trial on Xbox. I have Hades 2 on PC, so I'll be curious to see what the 1.0 release looks like.
Nice. All right, gentlemen, that is it for tonight. Thank you, everybody in the chat who has stopped by. Infinite Umbra, Ghostface, Brep, and Nate. Gentlemen, any last words before we head out for the night?
No, just raising up Umbra's comment that people who played the Sonic Racing demo have said that it was pretty good.
Yeah, I think those have usually been pretty solid.
I played the test fire or whatever the kind of server test a couple weeks ago, and it's pretty solid. Yeah, it plays well. It's much closer to Transform. I felt Sonic Racing or Sonic Team Racing or whatever it was, the most recent one, was not great, but this definitely feels tight. It's a good kart racer. Yeah, if you've enjoyed them in the past or enjoy a kart racer, it's a lot to look forward to.
Nice. What did you play that on? Was that
I
PC
played it
or
on
console?
Xbox.
Oh, Xbox. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. That has been episode number 404. DB will be the primary host for next week with Game Logic and probably myself. Maybe I might be out, kind of like this week, but I was able to make it. Will be the co-host for the night. Thank you, everybody, once again for joining us. Thank you, Game Logic and DPQ Hams, for co-hosting with me tonight. Please take care of yourselves out there. Stay safe, and we will see you next week.